So we have seen that our eyes and ears are programmed in such a manner that we can only perceive what we perceive, no more, no less. And for this reason, we need to introduce a means of knowledge to see deeper than our eyes can see and to see realities that were previously missed. And while you see a mountain or a bird or a flower or another person's face, what you miss out on consequently is this Om. And so the Upanishad is firstly and foremost bringing forward what is this Om. And we said this Om is this organizing intelligence which we do not see because it is at every level of mithya. So let's not think that Om, or this intelligence, is somewhere parked deep down after the particle, storing itself somewhere, locked away, and you have to find it under an instrument. Wherever there is a mithya form, that's exactly where you will find this intelligence. We have performed this analysis in a manner where you cannot say now, prove to me this intelligence. We have seen clearly that while you cannot find what we call a shirt, because if you look deeper into a shirt, it's actually cotton. But you cannot find cotton either when you look deeper into it through a pramana, because it's actually molecules. But you cannot find a molecule anywhere because it's made of atoms. So the name and form loses its reality. The moment you look deeper into it, it lost its status. It has a certain status which we do not call tucham. Tucham means illusion. A shirt is not an illusion. Illusion is like the sky flowers or man's horns, something that you imagine. A shirt is not imagined by anyone. We all collectively see a shirt. Therefore, similarly, I collectively with you see a world, and I cannot call that world an illusion. Illusion is not a term how Vedanta defines reality. Vedanta defines reality as mithya. It has a certain reality which you cannot call absolutely real, because absolutely real means it obtains in the past always, in the present always, and in the future always. There will be never a time that I can ever seek on a different world, in a different place, where I will not find that which is absolutely true now. And what we have ascertained so far, going back to the shirt, I cannot find a shirt or cotton or atom or neutron, proton, electron, even probabilities. That is where science stops. For that, you don't need Vedanta. So then the question is, why then am I here? If science already answers up to probabilities, which has no weight, by the way, then why do I need Vedanta? Vedanta introduces two more realities which science is still grappling with. And one of those realities is, for now, we call it the final satyam. For now, there's something after that. For now is that organizing intelligence. And that organizing intelligence is constantly reorganizing itself, reshuffling itself to obtain as this very moment right now. Now, very important. When I said yesterday, and you look at a wall, and you say, okay, so the wall is very easy. The wall I can reduce the flower, I can reduce anything that I see. But what about the one who's reducing it? Do not exclude that too. That is also the very intelligence that you are reducing this wall into. It's just a different rearrangement of that intelligence that creates what we call a subtle body, a body or a thought system that's able to reproduce a physical object and reproduce it inside itself. So therefore, exclude not your own cognitive capacity as being the very same organizing intelligence, making it what it is. Otherwise, you mistakenly make yourself as a separate observer observing the world. And we do not want that. You always have to include the very person, the inquirer, who is busy performing the inquiry. The inquired and the inquirer are none other than that organizing intelligence. And thus, reorganizing itself constantly every second, which is what you're seeing right now. Your eyes are programmed to see Andre flower wall, but it's just this organizing intelligence. Because you have a memory, a hippocampus, for that reason, from your standpoint, it seems like there is a continuity. If you look at a child who hasn't yet developed that memory system, the hippocampus, for them, there is no such thing as a continuity of unfolding. For us adults, there is. I say, my life is unfolding since the morning. I woke up and it's unfolding into this moment, and next moment is unfolding to the next. But a child, did you ever wonder why a child is completely in the present? Because their memory is still developing. So from their standpoint, they are constantly in the now, 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 now. But from your standpoint, when that memory develops, it compares the organizing principle called this compared to organizing principle of this. And it compares this moment and this moment, which is none other than intelligence, and thus it says, I am going through time. So because you have a memory, there is a sense of time for you. Take away memory, you have no sense of time. It would just be a constant this moment reorganizing itself into this moment. So even that becomes, even time itself becomes mithya, because time depends on the memory. Okay. Now, then we introduced a question yesterday which posed, how do you have this organizing intelligence which always remains itself? It never changes into something else, and from it can arise countless forms without itself ever taking on those forms. And an example of this is, take you are in a dream, and there is a mountain, and that mountain is real. That mountain is solid and it has substance. But there is also a lion in the dream, and so the lion is able to move, and the lion is sentient. It has this ability to correspond with the environment and make a decision, whereas the mountain is just a static, fixed structure. So the mind is able from itself to create both the insentient, called the mountain, and the sentient, called the lion. Now that mind that does that, your mind, thus remains the material of that dream, because if you look at a mountain, that mountain, is there an actual mountain in your dream? No. That mountain is none other than your mind. Impressions of the mind, which we call samskaras, grooves, which you have seen in the waking state, and they get passed over into the dream state, and then you see, in a form of that groove from the waking, it builds a mountain. And thus, in that mountain, or on the mountain, there is a lion. And you observe the lion, running up the mountain, hunting for... It wouldn't be a lion, it would be a mountain lion, for an ibex. A mountain lion would be running on a mountain, because lions do not run on mountains. And it's hunting for an ibex, I think it's called that, with, like curly horns, right? And so you're fascinated by this, but the point is, the mind always remains what we call the material cause. So the material cause of the mountain, of the lion, of both the sentient and the insentient. Insentient and sentient. Sentient means it's alive, insentient means it's not alive. And it remains not only is the mountain and the lion, or the mountain lion, are they materials, but also they have a certain ways of corresponding with the environment. So you have to now wonder, if I just give you clay and I give you water, then if you have no knowledge about what clay means in relation to the water, then how can you put those two together? You're just going to splash the clay away. It's like, I don't want you to do that. I want you to mix them together with the right temperature and bake it for an amount of time. And from that, you will have a pot that will have a functional value in the world. And for that, you need both skill to make the clay and the water and the temperature, and you need knowledge. The architect, the maker, the knower of the pot has to have knowledge of the pot. We discussed this. Therefore, the mind is not only material, it is also, we call, efficient. Or the skill maker. Upadana. And efficient, so think of it as an intelligent cause. The cause that knows how to create things, we call that nimitta. So upadana karanam and nimitta karanam. The material cause and the efficient cause is your mind. Now, despite creating that mountain, the mind remains the mind no matter what. When sleep comes, then if you look at, for example, a seed which contains the potential for a tree, your mind is like that during deep sleep. So this means your mind has this potential to create a tree, a mountain, a lion, laws and people, and all of that is stored away like a tree. The entire framework for a tree is stored away inside a seed. Your world is stored away inside your mind during deep sleep. And it's waiting to come out, and all of that material and the skill differentiates itself into 1,000 different objects at once, creating a dream world. And during the deep sleep, once again, all of that gets parked away, and you look inside your sleep, if you could, and you say, there's nothing here. Where is my life? It's not here. But then you wake up, and suddenly your life comes back. What does that show you? Your life must have been inside that place where there was nothing. That's why we call that deep sleep the potential for your life. You're inside this going, oh, where's personality? Where's these desires that are playing out in the dream and the waking? I can't find anything here. I can't find my name. I can't find my tendencies. I can't find what I like or what I dislike. And I'm looking, and all I can see is just darkness in the deep sleep. And then I say, therefore, there must be nothing here. But is there nothing here? It seems like nothing from one standpoint, but that nothing is actually everything in potential. Potential means it is there, you just cannot see it because it is in potential state. And thus that potential in the waking arises as the person that you are right now. So in that same way, the point going back to the mind, we need to understand the mind has the ability to manifest itself as objects, both sentient and insentient, but the mind remains the mind. In that same manner, intelligence remains intelligence while manifesting you right now, while manifesting 1,000 years, while manifesting 5,000 years, 1,000,000 years from now. So many things will be different. But if there's one thing that I can take reassurance in, is that suppose the entire universe is made of clay. And there's a clay plate, there's a clay cup, there's a clay person that you marry, and you're also a clay person. There's a clay guitar, clay bird, clay sound, and so on. Everything's made of clay. Now, because everything is made of clay, does that mean that my relationship is going to be exactly the same to all pottenware? Pottenware of the knife, pottenware of the plate, pottenware of the flower? No, my relationship is going to be different. But what do I know while having a relationship with all different things? What is my cognitive knowledge? Despite an appropriate or inappropriate relationship, it doesn't cancel out my knowledge that I'm only ever dealing with the one clay. And the one who's dealing with other clays is none other than that clay also. Therefore, non-duality doesn't mean that you have an exact same relationship with every single person. Krishna didn't have the same relationship with Duryodhana as he had with Arjun, because Duryodhana didn't listen. He was not capable of listening. And so Krishna had to put a certain, kind of boundary and says, fine, you don't want to deal with this, you're going to destroy the whole society. Though you are none other than me, I still have to put a boundary for the sake of the well-being of others who are actually interested in listening to my message. Whereas with the Pandavas, he had a proper healthy relationship because the Pandavas were on the side of Dharma. And thus, in that same way, all that is here is Om. Going back to verse 1, all that is here is Om. The entire universe, whatever else there is, beyond the 3 periods of time, is verily Om. Verily this one intelligence with which you have a different relationship with, by which you perform different functions, enjoy yourself, and sometimes learn lessons when you fall down. So ultimately, who's the real teacher here? If there's only one reality here, what is this really all about? Is it about suffering? Or could you maybe now rephrase suffering into, is this showing me where is my gap? One of the best definitions that I've ever heard of what suffering means. How do you define suffering?
Consequence of ignorance.
I like that. Okay.
Wishing reality was different than it is.
Identification with body and mind, my body and mind.
Okay. So putting all of that together, one of the best definitions was suffering is the gap between what I see and what is. That, in reference to that gap, that much suffering I have. In reference to what I expect an object to be for me, and in reference to what an object actually is, the amount of that gap determines how much suffering there is.
Can you say the story you make from a thing?
The story produces that gap. Yeah. So the amount of stories that I have that I'm producing, and what an object really or what a situation really is, that much gap I experience pain, discomfort, resistance with the world, and then I fight with the world trying to make it work for me. First, Navya.
So if I put this on pain, so if somebody's in really very physical pain, could you do the same thing?
No, that's an excellent question. A physical pain is different from suffering. Pain is something that is empirically true. Suffering is something that I mentally produce on my own, like an extra story added. Okay.
I would just say suffering could also be defined as not accepting what is.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Even shorter. Yeah. I say it's just a gap. Yeah. That gap. So what is the job of the individual? To reduce that gap. In fact, if you really look at your life, the amount of gaps between what you wanted and what an object was able to give you, that gap was making you resist and not be happy with that object and yourself. And when you finally grew up mentally, you realize that the person or whatever the object is not going to be what you fancy, and so by that alone you gave up. And you realize it's not worthwhile, it's not worth the time of living and trying to impute my stuff onto what I expect things to be. So I gave up, and that very giving up, that very exhaustion caused you to finally own up and say, I am happy with the way that things are. And it seems like wisdom on the outside, but what really just happened is you just got exhausted of trying to keep that gap wide and open, which takes a lot of effort, doesn't it? And you say, oh God, I'm so tired. Oh, I'm selling. I'm okay. I'm decently okay. Not perfect, but I'm okay now. Therefore, Now connecting that question to Om, because we are in verse 1, then what's the gap between what I see, a wall, and what this actually is? Huge. If I don't have the pramana, then it's just a wall, man. Paint it. Well, I have a lot of friends that paint their walls. I'm not putting anyone down or up. But if I see the world, and for me, I expect that world to do something for me, when that world is none other than intelligence, then that's a vast gap. And so I always have a fight or resistance against the very world. So what Vedanta trains us to do is to learn to see through an object, cognitively seeing through and through things, not projecting, because to project is also an ability of the mind to do. We're not projecting a bunch of intelligence symbols on the wall. We're simply thinking about it, and as you think about things more and more, it starts to change the flavor. The relationship starts to change. But I still see the exact same things. Okay. Therefore, conclusion, all that is here is Om, appearing as different forms to which we then give names onto. Okay. Which takes us to verse 2. Sarvam hi etat brahma ayam atma, brahma saha ayam atma chatushpat. All this is indeed Brahman. This Atma is Brahman. The same Atma has 4 quarters. Okay, you will notice something. We have not mentioned anything about Om. The topic has entirely changed, like 180 degrees. New words, new teaching. So, now let's connect verse 1 and 2. In verse 1 we said all there is here is Om. Yeah? Now we're saying all there is here is Brahman. And this Brahman is not different from Atman, the self, who you are. So now what it's saying is, or what one could ask is, how can both be true? All there is here is Om. Now all there is here is Atma, the self. But what the verse is saying, the truth of Om and the truth of Atma, you, is one and the same. And so now we need to reconcile how is that possible. Okay, so we have to so far find out what is Om, because we haven't really introduced Om, just the Satya Mithya aspect. We have to look at Atma, we have to look at Brahman, and the relationship between Om, Atma, and Brahman. Okay. So, Atma means self, or I, in first-person language. And Atma is the only principle in existence that doesn't need to announce itself. Now, listen to this carefully. This is even Om. Suppose I never gave you the teaching yesterday, and you were first time here in Vedanta, ever. And you always saw a wall as a wall, tree as a tree, bird as a bird. For you, the one who hasn't been exposed to Vedanta, did you know about the intelligence? Or you only knew about the wall? Maybe someone told you, intelligent design or something, but you haven't really considered what that means. So from your standpoint, intelligence hasn't announced itself. It was hidden for you. It hasn't announced itself. In fact, even an atom hasn't announced itself until we came up with a microscope. But what about the self? Does the self need to announce itself through some means of knowledge? See, yesterday we applied the means of knowledge, a pramana, and then through the means of knowledge, what came through? Intelligence. Intelligence was not there from first person standpoint for me until pramana was introduced. But the self is the only principle that doesn't need to announce itself through the help of something else, like a teaching. Because you knew that I was yesterday, you still know that I am today, and you will always know that I am tomorrow. So even if a pramana is not given to you, and a Vedanta is not given to you, you still don't need a pramana to know that I am. In that sense, Atma is the only principle in existence that doesn't need to be announced or doesn't need to announce itself through the help of something else. It is self-announcing. It's always announcing, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Now, never mind that you don't know what this I'm here is. The point is it's announcing itself non-stop. In all three states, right now it's announcing itself, in dream it's announcing itself. When you have some kind of a magical state, you go somewhere different, airy-fairy world, you still know that I am. But that world didn't announce itself until you had some intoxicant. So even the world depended upon Atma for it to be revealed. The dream depends upon Atma to be revealed. Therefore, to summarize this, we can put reality into two categories. That which is evident all the time, it's self-announcing, self-evident, and that which becomes evident to that which is self-evident. You get that? What is self-evident? What announces itself all the time? I am, I am, I am. What doesn't announce itself? Unless you open up your eyes and see a world. Unless you're given a means of knowledge to find something else out. Everything else. If I didn't have the eyes, would the world announce itself? Okay, let's do a little experiment. Open eyes. Okay, now close your eyes. Is the world announcing itself now? In terms of sight, is the form announcing itself? No. Now suppose you could close your ears completely. Are sounds announcing themselves now? No. Suppose you get sick and there's no taste and there's no smell. Is smell and taste now announcing itself? Suppose someone gives you morphine or you totally don't feel any tactile feedback. Is feedback announcing itself? But what is still announcing itself right now? I am. Whoever you want to call that I am, there's some presence, some entity, some being that needs not to be announced through any other means of knowledge. Okay, you can open your eyes now.
And even in deep sleep, then you're not aware of the I am, but afterwards
you come to see that indeed I must have been in deep sleep, otherwise why would I, if I was as good as the waker or the dreamer, why on earth would I disappear and go out of existence to go into a place of nothingness? So the fact that you go to sleep gladly, cheerfully, must mean there will be some presence there. And since life is always about you, it must mean that I will be there. So thereby, what is the only principle that you cannot negate, no matter how hard you try? Right now I can have amnesia and totally forget about the whole teaching. My name and everything else. But what is the one thing you cannot negate? Whatever you want to call that you cannot negate. To negate the Atma presupposes presence of Atma. If Atma could be negated, then who would be there to recognize the absence of Atma? Can't do it. Then it says Atma has 4 quarters. Now the way to understand the word quarter is 4 views by which you can ascertain the complete nature of Atma. 4 perspectives. Once we go through all 4 perspectives, 1, 2, 3, 4, then the word Atma, the word self, will become completely clear for you. Even though you're already Atma, so we're now asking for clarity. And how is the Mandukya going to provide that clarity? By dividing Atma, not dividing it, but looking at it from 4 perspectives. And sometimes the word quarter, you say, well, is that like 4 fingers, 5 fingers make up my hand? Does that mean that 4 quarters make up Atma? Or 4 legs make up a cow? Or a table? No. Think of quarter like a coin. And that coin is a whole, one whole coin. Now, now imagine somebody cuts out one slice of the coin, and I only have 3 quarters of the coin. And suppose there's a nice, beautiful print on that coin. And now, 1/4 of the coin is missing. What is your mind going to do towards that missing quarter? Fill it in, project. And how long is it going to keep on doing that? As long as that quarter is missing. Thereby, to understand Atma like a coin, I have to look at this quarter, this quarter, this quarter, this quarter completely. And once I do, then I see, wow, nothing here is away from me. And so thus the methodology goes like that. And what are these 4 quarters? The first quarter of that coin is the waking state, with which you are completely identified with your physical body. That's where your physical body becomes the main dominating force in life. And that waking state is associated to A. The second quarter is the dream state, or the subtle body, your mind, that is associated to U. The third quarter is the causal condition, that means your causal body, or deep sleep, that is associated to Ma. And the fourth quarter is what we call Turiya, Atma, which is the silence that comes after the Om. So all these 4 we will analyze, and the first 3, which are the physical, the subtle, and the causal, or the waking, the dream, and the deep sleep, the first 3 are mithya. Why? Because each one of them depends on the absence of the other 2. Waking can only be waking if there is absence of dream and sleep. Dream can only be dream if there's absence of waking and sleep, and so on. Whereas the fourth is that which receives 3 relational names depending upon what standpoint you're looking at it from. If you're looking at Atma from the standpoint of the waking, then you call Atma the waker. The word here is Vishwa. I will put waking observer. When Atma is looked at from the standpoint of the dream, we call that Taijasa, dream observer. When we look at Atma from the standpoint of the sleeper, we call Atma Prajna. Okay, so Vishwa, which just means in English waker, Taijasa in English means dreamer, Prajna in English means deep sleeper. I am the observer of the waking. I am the observer of the dream. When I'm observer of the waking, am I the observer of the dream? No. Therefore, for me, what becomes my Atma? Observer of the waking. Thus, I become the waker. When I'm a dreamer, am I observer of the waking? No. So, for me becomes the observer of the dreamer becomes my reality. I'm observer of the waking, I'm observer of the dream, I'm observer of the sleep. And that becomes my reality. And then I say, I, Atma, am that. So what the verses want to do is, by analyzing all 3, you come to see that you are who? The observer of the dream observer, the observer of the waking observer, the observer of the deep sleep observer. Therefore, you are that underlining observer that observes this waking observer right now, that's observing the waking state. You're the observer that will be observing that dream observer tonight, and you're the observer, the same observer, who will be observing the deep sleep tonight. Suppose you don't have knowledge of this. Let's give you an example. Neuroscientists, neurologists, I honor because they're very smart people and they operate on brains, right? They have to know a lot of knowledge. What a neuroscientist does is they look at all these three states and they say which one's most real. The waking, because they operate in the waking, and the dream and the wake and the sleep is just a bonus. It's just a bonus to serve the waker. The waker is the king. The dreamer and the sleeper are like servants for the waker. And then what do they do with the fourth quarter called Atma? They put the fourth quarter inside the waking brain observer. See what you're doing? You're mixing up the whole thing. I take that which is the fourth, which is actually the truth of all three, and I take that inside one single state, and I say consciousness is inside, not only inside the brain, but it's inside one single state, and that's called the waking. And that becomes that's their reality. So you can see how the error gets made. So now, what do you think we're going to do next? What's the next logical step after this? Suppose we all leave. What would be incomplete in your mind right now? What kind of questions will be incomplete? I want to know.
What's the fourth?
If you negate these three states, what is left over?
Okay. So the fourth, what is the fourth? Why is it called the fourth? Okay. Give me other questions. Suppose we end this today. What other questions will be in your mind?
What is liberation?
What is liberation? And how is liberation connected to knowing about the four quarters? The fourth is Turiya.
Or what are they all the same? Have they all the same status?
Do they all have the same? Do all four have the same status? Even though I did mention that the first three are mithya and the last is satyam.
Why do I need to go through all these three states?
Why do I need to go through all these three states? Why could I just not enjoy myself as Turiya, right, all the time?
What is the relationship with I sense to this?
What?
The one which is before.
So now using the word I sense, relationship to all these three?
Yeah, the I sense is related to this four.
Yes, yes.
So there must is it gone in the one before or not or whatever.
Okay, no, you're in a process of formulating the question. Yeah, which is important. The question doesn't have to be perfect. I want to see what other questions are being formulated in your mind as a result of this.
How is Om, Brahman, Atman, four states? How?
Okay, excellent.
What makes me think the waker is more real?
What makes me think?
The waker state is more real.
Brilliant. That will be Karika.
Is it personal or universal, this Turiya?
Okay. How do I prove, look at this question, this will be in Karika. How do I prove that waking is no more real than the dream? What gives this state the right to be classified as more real than the dream or the deep sleep? Is it more real? Anything else?
So what's the difference between Prajna, the deep sleep, and Turiya?
Deep sleeper and Turiya, okay. What's the difference between the deep sleeper? Is the deep sleep state equated to Atma? To non-duality?
Nadia made me formulate a question sort of like that. What is the relation between the self-evident I and the three or four?
Okay, the self-evident I is Turiya. It's just another name for self-evident I. Yeah. Cool. The reason I asked this is because I'm priming your brain to be switched on. So, yeah.
Can you only switch from waking to dream to deep sleep? Or is it more like the deep sleep is always there and then you have the different states coming afterwards? Like for example, you have the dream ability in the waking state, you can dream while in the waking state. But does that also mean that the Turiya is always here, but the waking is just more visible? You know what I mean?
It's more real, it's got more status.
No, it's more like I look at it as a cake. So in a cake you have like 3 levels. So on the top would be waking, then the second level would be dream, but the foundational level would be deep sleep.
Like other degrees in subtlety.
Okay. That will be negated because they all share the same status. So that one of them is not any more different, better or worse than the other. They're just states.
The waking state is the only state in which you can do sadhana.
Excellent. It's the only state where you can perform this inquiry. Look at this. Suppose, see right now, how much access do you have? Do you know about the dream from this standpoint? When I say dream, do you dream? Yeah. Do you sleep? Yeah. So in this state, you are relating to 2 other states. But suppose I ask you the same question in the dream, and I say, do you waking? Do you sleep? You can't answer. So suppose we have this inquiry in the dream. How many quarters will be accessible in the dream of those 4? 2. So you could access dream and Turiya. You could never access sleep or the waking. So your inquiry, as convinced as you are, as enlightened as you are in the dream, you would be half ignorant. Therefore, what's the advantage of the waking state? It's the only state that gives you access to every single other state you could ever possibly have, including drug-induced states. Turiya is that which is through and through all 3. Therefore, it has to be available in the dream also.
And in the waking state.
It's available right now, yeah. As that which is doesn't require a means of knowledge to announce itself. Yeah. Okay, well, then let's jump into the first state. The first state that we all take absolutely real. We do all things in the waking. We strive for, we die for, we get born, we look for moksha in the waking, we have children in the waking, we study in the waking, we're hungry in the waking, and then we're not hungry in the dream. I filled up my stomach completely in the waking state. I'm so full. I dream, I'm hungry. No connection to the physical body because I built my own subtle body in the dream. And I can't say, wait a minute, I just ate. Can't say that because I have no access to the waking anymore. So waking state consciousness, which you think you are the waking state consciousness. So therefore, let's pretend like we are all waking state consciousness, like we're all wakers. Jagritasthanaha bahih prajna sapta anga ekona vimshati mukha sthula buk vaishvanara pratamah padaha. The first quarter is called Vaishvanara or Virat, whose sphere of activity is the waking state, who is conscious of external objects, who has 7 limbs and 19 mouths, and is the experiencer of gross objects. Last year, Hari was sitting exactly there, and he asked me, he brought up the word Vaishvanara. Remember that? Here it is. We're answering it 1 year later. The first quarter, the waking, which is the most real to you, the one that, as we said, take most seriously. We praise it. We praise people in the waking. We blame people in the waking. We forgive in the waking. Whoever forgives, well, actually this has happened. You forgive someone who's hurt you in the dream. You wake up, or you hurt someone in a dream, and you wake up from a nightmare, and you go, oh, I'm so sorry for doing that. But we generally don't do that. All of the stories that you have about who you are, about who you think you are, is in reference to whom? The dreamer or the waker? The waker. That means who you think you are right now, the personality that I am, confident, shy, talkative, extroverted, introverted, all of that are stories about the waker of the yesterday and the waker of 2 days ago, and so on. And that...
Logical, there are connections, I guess. You can have kind of an event in the dream state. In the waking state, you think about, oh, this tells me something. I see, I can forgive this person, you know? So there's a psychological connection.
There's a psychological connection which you can definitely use that for healing yourself, looking into your subconscious. But right now we're not analyzing the functional psychological value of a dream. We're looking at the states of just the waking. And for how many hours is this I available to you that you take absolutely real out of 24 hours? 16 hours, okay, good. So you don't sleep very much. 15, 16 hours. So 15, 16 hour I, that's who I am, that's who I protect, that's who I worry about dying, that's who I, pamper and hamper and, squash and squish, and everything in my life is about a 15-hour entity who I care so deeply. And this 15-hour entity, all of their attention is turned. I was having a convo yesterday and said, what do you do at the airport? Someone said, I like to people watch. I like to see things. I like to observe things. This is what we all do. Did you ever just trying to mind your own business and people are just going like this? It's so annoying. But that's what everyone does. It's not a personal thing. It's actually a waking state attribute. We all always look at things, tourists taking pictures and looking at flowers and studying, and all conversations are really about outer objects. That's how you connect. That's how you build relationships. You always talk about what you saw, what you heard, what somebody else said. So all attention is turned outwards. And what the verse is saying is that this 15-hour entity, who you believe yourself to be, is only one single quarter. One quarter which you are convinced that is you. You are as good as the consciousness of the waker. And so, as we said, what's the special status of the waking state that other two states don't have? It's a state where you are forced to comply to rules. If somebody's bothering you in the dream, what are you going to do with them? Poof, right? There's no incentive in the dream to improve yourself, to communicate, to get along with people. Someone puts you in jail. It's like, oh, fantastic. I can hardly wait to go there and turn it into heaven, like that. But here, if someone threatens you and you go to jail, you know tomorrow you will wake up behind the same bars as yesterday. And that becomes scary. So it gives you an incentive to comply to certain rules. And this ironically ends up the very thing that makes you grow forward. Because you are forced to abide to dharma in a way that makes you a better, more discerning human being. Because there's fear of crossing boundaries, and that very fear makes you want to do the right thing. And so the waking state, in that sense, is the only state that has this glory of compliance. Universal compliance, getting along, and being forced to look at your responses, because that person who you hurt or hurt you, they will still be there tomorrow. But in the dream, you don't have that privilege. They disappear into somebody else. So, then it continues and it says, this waking state has 7 limbs. The entity in this waking state has 7 limbs. Do I only have 7? Well, you can have 300. It's just a number. So what are these 7 limbs? They are the means by which the waker communicates with the world. You need arms, you need legs, you need feet, you need, different organs. So never mind about the 7. Then it says it also has 19 mouths. What does a mouth do? What did you just do? Take stuff in. From outside into inside, okay? So there's an exchange. You make something unmanifest from the outside and you make it manifest on the inside. So you're constantly doing this exchange. You're consuming things for whom? For the waker. I want to make that which is in the waking state, I want to make it part of me, the waker, because I see myself as a real entity. What does your mouth do? Consumes food. What does your buddhi do? It consumes ideas. What are you doing now? You're consuming ideas. What does your emotions do? It consumes feelings. What does your memory do? Consumes pictures, impressions. What does your eye sense do? Your sense of eye. It consumes what all the other 18 mouths are consuming. If your mouth is consuming food, it's consuming taste. Eyes are consuming what? Form. Ears are consuming sound. And skin is consuming a mosquito bite. Then what is your eye sense consuming? It's consuming whatever the mouth is consuming, what the skin is consuming, what the ears are consuming, and what the eyes are consuming. And that eye sense then makes it seem like it's happening to me, over here and not over there. Let's do a little experiment. Suppose that a person is born blind, and they're with us now. For them, they would be in the waking state as much as you and I would. But for them, to what degree would that waking state be diminished? To the degree of their senses not working. So if their eyes are not working, to that degree, the waking state is diminished. If the ears are not working, to that degree, the waking state is further diminished. So right now, the waking state is only as real as the well-being of your senses. You take 3 senses away, you're still in the waking state, but in a very monotonous, very monotone waking state. And to that degree, we speak of things. If my eyes are functioning, then I say, here's what I saw at the beach, now let me share that with you. If I have no eyes, I can't speak that to you. So the entire experience of the waker becomes only as good as the well-being of the 5 senses. If you had a 6th sense, you would be talking about that too. That to you would become another complex. You know, we have something like the art of aesthetics, right? Beauty art. Go to a museum. That depends on the eyes. And then that becomes an entire pursuit of life. I am a artist. I do graphic design. I do videos. Entire YouTube is all about physical sight. So you build a life, and you build commercial products, and you build stories around just sight. Now suppose you add a 6th sense, then that too would now become an extra complexion to you. And now that too you would have to deal with. So what are we all ever dealing with? The degree to which our senses are working. And we make those real. Not only do we make those real, but we make the entire waking state real. And we're only speaking about 1 quarter, by the way. 1 single quarter we're speaking of. So much complexity to deal with. How does a vritti, and then I'll close. How does a vritti, or a thought, take place? This accordion, is this physically inside your mind? No. But you do see an accordion. There's a physical accordion here. This is a waking state accordion. In the state that we are in right now, waking state, there's an external object out there. How does that object out there reach me? Why am I seeing this object right now? What happens? What kind of an exchange happens? Because we know that the eyes are consuming 19 mouths. What are these 19? Well, 5 organs of perception, 5 organs of action, 5 pranas, and you got the mind. The mind, which is the buddhi, the emotions, the chittam, and the eye sense. We'll talk about the eye sense. How does this object enter my mind? We call that vritti jnanam. Vritti jnanam. Vritti means thought, knowledge. So this accordion has a reality to it. And this accordion enters my mind because my eyes are open, and my mind replicates the accordion exactly as it is. So are you really seeing the accordion, or are you seeing your mind? You're seeing your mind. You're never seeing the world as the world truly is. Even color. Color is a product of your brain. There's no such thing as color, but you see color. Color is just the wavelengths of light which is interpreted by the physical brain, and that's how you see color. So this accordion you're not really seeing out there. You're seeing this accordion inside your mind right now. And the degree to how much distortions my mind has produced in reference to this accordion is a degree to how much suffering I have. For example, suppose right now you were small as a child and someone threw an accordion to you because you were naughty. Who's going to do that? Expensive accordion. What kind of memory have you developed towards an accordion? Like a fear. And now you see an accordion, we all see an accordion, but what has your mind added? Another level of fear. So the degree to how much your mind and memory is imputing additional narratives onto an image inside my mind, to that degree I'm having a relationship with the accordion. And then I say the accordion is evil, and then I try to make the accordion stay away, but the accordion is very innocent, it's not doing anything. So what is it that produces a distortion between reality in the waking state and clarity in the mind? Narratives, stories, likes and dislikes, imaginations, projections, and so on. So now suppose that accordion, we replace it with the knowledge of Vedanta. You see how it can become a problem? Same thing. The knowledge in the form of words is entering my ears, but my memory, having heard from other teachers, all these other teachings, they're dumping their own notion, and it's all getting mixed up. And I'm going, yeah, this is good, yeah, but I'm not getting it. What about, and I'm trying to resolve all these doubts, which is why Vedanta has the second stage called mananam, doubt removal. That's always a consequence of what you have heard before. And so that's okay. Next, after the break, we will talk about the ahamkara, the I sense, and the four modes of the mind. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.